This is Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling. This ain't no nightclub or CBGBs, but for their sake, let's just pretend it is.
Hello, kiddies. We're going to have a good time together because today we're going full 80s, full metal with, I think we can say good friend, can't we?
Yes.
Is everyone on the show a good friend?
Yeah, most of them.
Right. Lorraine Lewis of Femme Fatale, but also of the one and only Vixen.
Yes.
And I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of perfect. We've had our little pop sojourn with people like Quinn and Sat Stang before, but now it's
we're back to rocking.
Yeah, there's going to be some hairspray and some glitter in your face, and you're just going to have to deal with it.
And some pretty fantastic ladies tearing up the stage.
Exactly. And it's great. I don't know if you've noticed. I feel like this comes up constantly when we're talking about, but they are heading back out. They are touring this summer. So you can see Vixen. They're playing with a bunch of really cool bands. And then they're on the, I believe, Monsters of Rock?
I believe so. I think so.
Is that the Alice Cooper cruise?
Let's double check.
I think they are.
I think so.
As our show turns into us Googling things.
Yes, it does often. Let's see. I don't know, but Lorraine is so much fun. She's so cool. I know I say that all the time, but I mean, let's be honest. Do we really interview people? Like, we wouldn't waste our time with people that weren't cool, but she is just stellar. And she's so, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, I feel like she sort of gives you the unvarnished truth about things.
Yes, that's what she's super real. She is super straightforward. What's funny about it is we actually talked to her a while ago.
Right.
And we didn't hold it because we didn't want to air it. She was just kind of special. We wanted to keep her safe because we knew we always had her, because it was always good and would always be relevant. And she was amazing.
Right. And I think, too, we originally were like, well, let's see what happens pandemic wise when Vixen is heading out again. Because when we talked to her, and I think we took it out of the interview, we were saying, like, well, when are you guys getting out there? And it was the same thing I feel like a lot of the people we talked to last year said, which was, I hope this fall, but I'm not optimistic. And there's a whole bunch of other things that have to happen. And finally, we're to a point now where things are starting to open up. Venues are starting to be full capacity. And there's enough places around the country where a band can put together a tour to justify the cost of getting the bus and doing all of that.
Right.
So hopefully one of these days, I mean, we'll have to listen to the interview again, but I'm pretty sure Lorraine invited us on the Monsters of Rock cruise.
Yes, she did. But I'm looking at this and I don't think they're on that cruise this year. They've been on that cruise.
I know they're on one. Maybe it's next year, the 2022.
Well, there it is. I just didn't see them right away because there's an awful lot of incredible people on this cruise.
There are. And she didn't say you can crash on my sofa in my stateroom.
No.
But she did not say that.
True. I mean, I've slept on the balcony before. Like, I wouldn't even be in the stateroom. I'm totally good on the balcony.
Yeah, that tracks.
I'll sleep on the Lido deck. I don't care.
You and Isaac spooning.
Yes. Yeah. That would be the best thing ever. I'd be so happy. Whatever. And I'm front row for the show.
That's true. That's very,
my
very
tan
true.
Is perfect. It's
everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
By which I mean you win.
Well, if I win, everybody wins, because if I'm happy, everybody's happy.
And I think that's the intro right there. Just ending with just, if I'm happy, everyone's happy.
Can't you just take me and love me the way that I am? Some things don't matter, it's all just part of a plan. Don't turn away from what's real.
I don't know where we should which one we start on?
Oh my gosh, so many fun things to talk about.
I guess the music
There
came.
are.
The
Yes.
music came before the casting direction, I'm assuming.
Yes, it did. Yes, I've been a rock and roller for a long time. Always wanted to be David Lee Roth, and
Excellent. You
you
and me
know,
both. Only you did it.
yeah, I saw my first concert with Van Halen in my hometown of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I was with a bunch of girls, and I was with my brother as well. And David Lee Roth comes walking out crotch first, like he does, and I just fell in love with him. And my friends were like, "Oh my God, like let's get backstage and all this stuff." And I was like, I want to be on stage with I it's all good. You guys can lust after him, whatever, but I want to be that guy. So that's kind of the introduction. And that's where it all started.
And how old were you at that time, if I may?
Oh gosh. It's really hard to say. I'd have to look up when was their first tour. I'm not exactly
78?
78.
77,
So
70? Or at least
I
that was the first record, right?
I
Right.
graduated from high school in 1976. So in 76, I was like 18 years old. Like in September, I'm going to be 62. So I was, I've been around for a long time, done a lot of things. So I'm not really sure. Let's do the math, and then we can really sound smart because I'm not sure how old I was. I
Oh,
just know that I
math
stood
is
on
the worst.
my chair the whole night and did not stop. It was just like, oh my God, like these guys are fucking amazing. So it was that. Yeah.
So how did you actually make the transition from being like, I want to be him to actually being a bona
Him.
fide, right,
Yeah.
amazing lead singer, rock star?
Well, I started out like I was a singer in junior high, girls choir, concert choir. I actually got denied like you had to audition to be in concert choir. And I failed, like I didn't get in, I wasn't good enough. And so I had to join the girls chorus. And then I was just a super loud singer. I think that kind of comes from me being from a family of 6 kids. And we always, to get my parents' attention, we were like loud and like, notice me, notice me. So, so I was a loud singer. And then I got my first solo when I was in girls choir, and they gave me like it was actually a duet with another girl. And I remember my parents came and they told me that I drowned her out. And so that kind of started things for me. I joined a band. My brother had a little band called the Suspenders, and I became the lead singer, and they were all like, 5 years younger than me. And then it just kind of went from there. And then I put a band together in Albuquerque. I was in a band called West Wind. I was singing Linda Ronstadt tunes. And then, and then I saw David Lee Roth, and then it was over. I had to be David. And so then I teased my hair up big, and I had a band called Babe Ruthless. And I was the Babe Ruthless.
Love it.
And then Babe Ruthless turned into Femme Fatale. And I mean, we got really popular. We were doing covers. We were doing, missing persons and all that kind of stuff from the 80s. And then throwing in some Van Halen and really rocking out. And then it was basically like Mondays and Tuesday nights, the band was really popular. And even though it was a top 40 band, there would be lines out the door on a Monday and Tuesday night. And then a really good girlfriend of mine, her name is Kathy Stonko, and she was going to move to Los Angeles. She moved to LA. She became a stripper. And she came back on a weekend and she said, you have to move to LA. Like there are no chicks doing what you do. It's all guys. And I got the bug from that. I was like, okay, that's my mission. I'm going to LA and I'm gonna make it, man. And that's basically what happened. My band, some of them I brought with me, some of them stayed because they were afraid of LA. And I just went to LA with my keyboard player, my guitar player. And we put out ads and tried to find a band that was going to rock the house. And we would look through the little peephole of our apartment, our little shitty apartment in the valley. And we would put ads out and people would come up and like, we'd look, and we were so awful. Like we were so god awful. If they didn't look cool, like if they didn't have cool hair or a vibe, we didn't open the door. It's so awful. I'm a really nice person now. I feel really bad.
But it kind of is a job requirement, though. Like, it is a mandatory. You have to be cool.
You have to be cool, and like hair, like, because also in the 80s, keep in mind, there was like what, Flock of Seagulls hair,
Right.
or there was fucking rock and roll, cool,
Yes.
hunky dude hair.
Right.
And so we wanted the hunks, right? Like I wanted a really good looking guy. So what ended up happening was that months and months went by. I was waitressing at Bob's Big Boy in Burbank, and which was totally fine. And then I loved waitressing. But anyway, so basically it was like, fuck, we're not finding this band. Like I don't have a drummer, I don't have a bass player. What is happening? So what does a girl do? She calls her brother back home and says, hey, brother bass player, I need you. I need you, and I need your two friends, the guitar player and the drummer from this band, and I need you guys to come out to LA and be my band.
Love it.
And so they did. We all lived in a house, and we, little by little, it started to happen. I was waitressing at a place called Le Express on Ventura Boulevard, and I wanted to be a bartender, but the quick fix was be a cocktail waitress. So I did that. And I mean, I waited on Mick Jagger. I waited. It was like the cocaine capital of the valley, this restaurant.
Yeah.
So basically all these rock stars were coming in. I mean, I waited on Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics, you know, Mick Jagger, he left me $100 tip, Terry Bozzio from Missing Persons, you know, he asked me out, like all these guys were coming around asking me out. And it was a wild time. It was a wild time. And I was doing my band, and we were doing shows on the Sunset Strip. And basically I got a record deal while I was cocktail waitressing.
Awesome.
And it was just like, you know, we got signed after 9 shows in LA. Like it happened really fast. And it was the heavyweights of Gerald Busby, Irving Azoff, Howard Kaufman, big weights from So sorry if I'm talking too much.
No,
I lived a long time, so there's a lot of shit to talk about.
This is what we want. No, talk away.
So Gerald Busby, part of Motown. We're rock and roll, big hair, 80s, right? And so I remember, so a couple things happened. Manhattan Records was going to pay for this this showcase. I started inviting everybody, you know, Howard Kaufman, MCA Records. I invited everybody. I invited all of our friends. I had no idea of the protocol. That's how green I was from little Albuquerque, New Mexico. So Manhattan's paying, and MCA Records shows up. So Manhattan, in comes Gerald Busby, one of the big wigs there, comes in, and you know, I just was like friendly to everybody and made sure everybody was fine. There was food and drinks, and I remember had a great show. It was just a great show. And there's one song that we do called Rebel, and it's kind of a ballad. And I remember this moment where I really, that song means a lot to me. And I remember looking up into the balcony, and I kind of had a moment, and there was lots of lights in my eyes, right? And I'm just singing and just kind of pouring my whole emotion into it. So fast forward to the next week when MCA wants to have a meeting with me about the band and possibly signing us, and it's Gerald Busby. And he tells me, there was a moment in your song Rebel that you looked right at me, and I felt everything you were singing.
Perfect.
And I was thinking, that's awesome. But I had no idea who was up there. Like I couldn't see shit. Like it was just a bunch of lights, and you know, and so, but I did have that moment, and we did connect, and that was what made them want to sign us. And then he left and went to open up the branch of Motown for MCA, and then I was under the wing of Gerald, Irving Azoff, and Howard Kaufman was my manager. So it was pretty amazing. I remember then, so then now I'm signed to, well, now there's like this idea that the band's going to get signed to MCA Records, which is a really big deal. We're a really young band. Keep in mind, it wasn't but a few months before that my brother and the other bandmates came out. We really were pretty green as far as writers together. But then my manager, Andrea Cardo and Howard Kaufman, we booked a show at the Whiskey A Go Go, and they came out to see us. And I know, so fun. And there was
Amazing.
another band called Savage Garden or something Savage. They were all guys with beautiful blonde hair. We were opening up for them. And so MCA and Howard Kaufman, all the people from management came to that show. And Secret Savage was getting a bunch of attention too. So everybody was like in anticipation of Secret Savage. But these other people came and we opened up. And everybody just like ate what we were feeding them. And so after that, like the whole place kind of cleared out. Again, I felt bad because, you know, girl rock and roller, and we're the ones that ended up with the deal. And I remember the next day in my shitty little apartment, I was paying like $500 for a month, which was way out of my price range at the time. And Howard Kaufman sends me, and Irving Azoff, they send me this huge bouquet of flowers that almost took up my whole apartment, and a bottle of champagne. And it was just those moments, you know, Howard Kaufman coming backstage and with a half a case of Cristal, like right, like crazy stuff. Dom Perignon, like all this stuff was coming. Like, you know, I mean, I could have taken a couple of those bottles and paid my rent with. It was it was ridiculous.
Right.
It was ridiculous and fabulous.
Or to follow up on that, you said, I mean, you guys played 9 shows and then got this deal. You had just started as a band. How long had you been writing together? Were you still doing covers, or was it like oh my God, we're on a label, suddenly we need 10 songs to make up a record?
It was completely terrifying, but at the same time, we felt so ballsy, like, oh, this is what you do. Like, it was no big deal. But I had been in Babe Ruthless with the guitar player who we eventually let go of and replaced, and the keyboard player. And so I was actually married to the keyboard player when we first went out to LA. I've been married a bunch of times. But we'll count those later. But so we were writers together. We wrote a lot of the music together. And so we had songs that we had written together. And then we incorporated the other band members. But yes, it was like 1, 2, 3, you know, you guys going to the studio. You know, looking back, there's a million different ways we could have done it, and we could have gelled as a band more. Looking back, we could have gone out on the road first and gelled as a band and been writing, you know, but MCA was so gung-ho about putting us on a record and getting it out there. And I was going to be the first female rock and roller on their label. And Irving Azoff and Howard Kaufman were such good friends. Like, they had this whole thing that they were like, Irving was going to take care of it, and financially everything's going to be good, and let's just get this machine going. And so there wasn't a lot of time to waste. You know, I remember Paul Stanley from Kiss, they reached out to him, and he was thinking about producing the record. He came and saw us at the Whiskey, and that was like super cool. And I think that, budget wise, he was out of our budget. And so we ended up with Jim Faraci, who produced the first Poison record.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm still
Not
good
so
friends
bad.
with Jim. Yeah, it was amazing. So, you know, there we are in some great studio. I can't even remember the name of it right now. And it was just a dream come true. And then on my birthday, I remember we got a call from my manager, and he said, you want a birthday present? And I was like, well, yeah. And so he told me that we were going to be touring with Cheap Trick. And so
I can't just.
It's pretty cool, right?
That's beyond cool. Like,
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah, it really cool. Really, really cool. And, you know, so then we went out on tour, and all of that was just flipping amazing. I got to use Robin Sanders' his monitor system. I'm actually deaf in my left ear. So I was born deaf in my left ear. I have actually a deformity in my left ear. And so monitors are super important to me. Like major, like I have good pitch because I have, you know, like when people are singing and they shut that one ear to get their pitch.
Right.
So I have that all the time. But I really love a blasting monitor because my guitar players were so loud and the drummer hit so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, after like our first show, they're like, I was the girl. So it's like, use our monitor system, like awesome. you know? So I used their monitor system and it was amazing. I got to sit on the side of the stage and watch Robin Zander sing every night. And he didn't, at least then, he never talked during the day. So it was sort of like Rockstar 101 and observing and watching what people did in these situations. So he didn't talk during the day at all. When he came out to sing every night, killed it. That was the Flame tour. That song, The Flame.
Wow.
Yes.
So good, so good. So I would
So
sit
good.
there on the side of the stage and I would just like every night, just like, wow. And it was just amazing. Yeah, great ride.
Yeah. I mean, so Cheap Trick, as like you said, as a band to learn the ropes is pretty good. But personally, backstage hanging out with them, that sexual tension with Bunny Carlos has got to be off the charts, right?
Right?
Awkward, just bizarre.
Okay,
like,
yeah. No, that's what I thought. Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Quiet, weird. I mostly hung out with Robin Zander and Rick Nielsen. They were super fun. Like we hung out with them when we went to, we were in Louisiana in the French Quarter on Halloween. And that was super fun. And just everybody getting just
Wow.
blasted and just super fun. And my bandmates were right in there. My band got crazy. I had the back room of the bus. My manager, Howard, we had the tour bus and it was this thing, like I was kind of his pet. And it was the room at the back of the bus was my room. Like it was the lounge, but that's how I traveled. So all the boys were in the bunks and I had like that back room. And it was
perfect.
It was perfect for me and perfect for a girl. And in all fairness, with all the Me Too notoriety, for me, I mean, there was a lot of weird female male tension, or back then they didn't play females on the radio, not rock radio.
Right.
So there was a lot of stuff that I dealt with that. But as far as weird, awkward situations like with Howard Kaufman or Irving or any of these men, never, not once. Treated me like a little sister or a daughter. Yeah.
But that's something I was wondering, because you're coming up in an era, especially in that genre of music, that is sort of notorious for not treating women the best. And that's amazing that everybody was so respectful and just genuinely wanted to help, and they saw you as an artist first, essentially.
Well, maybe. I'm not exactly sure if they really saw me as an artist, because and the first meeting that I had with Howard Kaufman when he decided to manage me, I had already been talking to Andrea, his like right arm woman, and she wanted to find a band that he would co-manage with her. And that's when she found me. That she was, so she basically, I remember she called me one day, she said, okay, Howard wants to have a meeting with you. She was so excited. She's like, I just want you to come in and just be you. And I was like, who am I? What am I? I don't know, but okay. So I remember I went to Goodwill. I found like this cool top that I liked. I had cut off shorts on and cowboy boots. My hair was just a fucking mess as usual, and makeup on and everything. And she said, now don't be offended if you have a meeting and it's like a 5 or 10 minute meeting. Like he's a very busy man, da da da. And I walked in and I was there for a good hour, maybe hour and 15. We just got along great, super fun. I think he was just sizing me up, like, how hungry is this girl? And then I remember her call, in the conversation, she was like, oh my God, he loves you. He super wants to manage you. And then she said, he had one question for you. And he said, if I buy her boobs, will she wear them? And I said, absolutely. I mean,
right?
It was ladies, man.
I will too.
Right. So I said, absolutely, because I had little perky things back then, which, now here we are a million years later, and I'd love to go back to the perky things. But, when you're 20, I was 28 at that time, 27, 28. And I was like, sure. I mean, that's what was going on. Girls, girls, girls. Like, come on. So I did. I bought them, and I was kind of like this little pinup girl. So I think that, did they respect me as an artist? I don't know. I think they just knew that I wanted it and I was going for it. And I wasn't really like the girl with the ponytail and on her head, like just writing songs every night. Like I wanted to be David Lee Roth, remember? So
Right.
The
Yeah.
attention and all that came with it was fine. But no, there was nothing ever weird with any of them. There was, the radio people, there was always lots of blow and stuff that I actually didn't do because I got my fill in college. So those days were long over with by then. I was just a shot of Jack and a Corona back kind of girl at that moment. But it all rock and roll, fun, crazy.
You guys, you did your record, you were on tour with Cheap Trick, and then it sort of seems like all of a sudden you're broken up. Like, what was it, 3 years later, 4 years later? Is that
It
right?
wasn't that long. But basically, we went out for the tour and we released our first single, which was Waiting for the Big One. And then the record company came to me and said, we want to release the ballad next, which was Rebel. That was the song that
Right.
Gerald Buzz loved.
Right.
And they had visions of, back in the day, they would always do those black and white, backstage, grainy, on the road videos. And that's what they wanted to do. And I was all for it. I thought that was a great idea. My bandmates, however, didn't want to do that. They wanted to stay hard rock and heavy, and they felt like that was going to wimp us out. So I was kind of in a rock and a hard place. I definitely wanted to do what the label wanted to do because I agreed with them, but I didn't want to upset my bandmates, which, by the way, the bass player was my brother. So
Right.
I felt torn. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to make a great decision, and I sided with the band and released the next song, which was Falling In and Out of Love. But we said no to the ballad, and I think that could have changed things if we would have gone the ballad way. But hey, here we are in 2020, and what are you going to do? But it was that moment where, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I went with the band, and then the plan was to go in and do a second record because I think we had about 65, 70 stations across the country that was playing us. And then when we released Falling In and Out of Love around Christmas time, I think we got 13 stations. So it bombed at radio. It was, those decisions that changed the course of what happened with the band. And so then the idea was you're going to go in, you're going to do a new record, and then we're going to come out again. And we thought we were going to get more tour support financially to continue the tour. And that didn't happen. And they wanted us to go back into the studio. And then at that time, we were writing together because we had been on the road for so long. And then basically at Christmas time, they cleaned house at MCA and they fired everybody that was working with us, which is a typical story. So then January comes around and like Liz Heller and Janie Hoffman and just all of our support team was gone. And a guy named Brett Hartman came in and he had his favorite band, which was Pretty Boy Floyd. And they came in and then now they were the MCA darlings. And we were forgotten about. And we recorded demos with Toby Wright, who worked with Hart. And he's actually from our hometown of Albuquerque. And we did demos with him. And then it was over as fast as it came. A lot of things happened, though. My manager, Andrea, got brain cancer. And while we were starting to have meetings and figure out what to do, the record company wanted to have me as a solo artist. And things got weird with the band and they wanted to be super hard and heavy. And I just wanted to keep my career going. And then it was sort of decided that, we were going to go our separate ways and that I was possibly going to stay with MCA until they said that I was going to be responsible for all of the red that Femme Fatale was in with the record company. And that was going to be my bill. And so Andrea and Howard said, no, let's shop her somewhere else. And so then Mike Klink, who produced Guns N' Roses, contacted Andrea and said, I think Lorraine's the next Axl Rose. And he heard a song that I had written called Buried Alive. And he wanted to work with me. And then, that's actually before I went separate ways with the band. Sorry. So the band was still around, but then it was Mike Klink that was like, I want to lose the band, keep Lorraine. I'm going to bring in Matt Soren on drums. Slash is going to play. Duff's going to play. And I'm just like,
may as well call them. What do
I'm
they
like,
got
okay,
going
what,
on?
right? I'm like, what to do, what to do. So he's got me in the record plant when they were doing, I can't remember what record it was. It was Illusions 2 maybe. And I got to hear like in the studio, those guys working. It was flipping amazing. And so now I'm feeling like,
Amazing.
oh, here's my life. Like, here we go. Here we go. And the decision was like, I felt bad to leave my band and my brother and everything that came along with that. And at the same time, I just kind of was like, let's go for it. And then the wheels started falling off though. Andre got very sick with her brain cancer. We were in meetings with MCA one day and we were talking about money, and I was going to be getting an advance again for the next phase of what was going to happen. And then she said, I'm having a head thing go on. Like I have to go to the bathroom. So she went to the ladies' room and she didn't come back. And so I went to the ladies' room and found her on the floor and she was bleeding from her head.
Oh gosh.
And paramedics came and it was just like, she didn't remember who I was. She thought I was a soap opera actress and she was holding my hand. It was rough go. It was a rough go. And then it was sort of like the wheels just kind of fell off. And I think out of respect to Andrea, Trudy Green, who was at Howard Kaufman, she was very amazing manager, but nobody wanted to touch me because I was Andrea's kind of a thing. And out of respect, it got super weird. And then I was just sort of like, LA, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that was kind of it for a minute.
In that time between when you get the band back together, when you have this other really cool side thing going on, it's not really anyway. How often did you just look back and go, we were playing the whiskey, we were, these people were showing up at the gigs, like we played 9 shows before we got signed? You must have just sat back and been like, I cannot believe this all happened. And even you're saying I'm hanging out with, half of Guns N' Roses who are maybe they'll play on the record.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you need somebody to do it.
Yeah. Well, Mike Klink was building a brand new house at the time. So he's driving me around in his Porsche Carrera. Like it's a white, like brand new, right? He's got all this money from Guns N' Roses and I'm at his new house while he's building. He's like showing me the new studio. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, how is this even happening? But that's something about LA, especially at the time in Hollywood. When you first are there, and at least how it was for me, there's just a vibrance. There's you come over the hill and you see the diamond field of lights. And I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it just gets into your soul and goosebumps. And it's like you would end up at parties on Mulholland Drive. I don't remember how I got there, but there was just a vibe and people were friendly and you would be at the clubs on the strip and there were flyers everywhere and people just loved each other and loved the scene. And you would make fast friends in a second. And there you would be in some amazing mansion with all sorts of people hanging out. I mean, it was pretty wild and amazing. And now I'm singing for Vixen, and we can get to that later if you want, but I just want to say that
Absolutely.
Britt, the guitar player, she's 34 and she's only been in LA a couple of years. And she's got stories of her just moving to LA a few years ago and ending up in crazy places with famous people. And it just is something that happens, if you are open and free and friendly and cool and just like, hey, and not judgy, you'll end up at some pretty amazing parties. I ended up at Jackie Collins, the writer.
Yeah.
So she wrote a book called Rockstar.
Yes, I read it.
So she that book was in I think 88 or 89, and I get invited to the party. And so, there I am, and there's Suzanne Summers, and, I'm like hanging out and talking, and it's amazing. All the fancy stuff everybody's wearing. And then I meet Steven Tyler, and he grabs me and says, you look like me in my song, Dude Looks Like a Lady. And like, there's a picture of us somewhere. I don't know where, but yeah, it was pretty great. And honestly, my life, as fabulous as all this sounds, I think it was the norm. I mean, I know people that even multiply the things I've done or experienced. Like, my thing was like this, but I mean, look, okay. I did get invited to play at Universal Amphitheater New Year's Eve. Maybe it was 89. It was when Sam Kinison had the song Wild Thing.
Uh-huh.
And so I got to be on stage with Dweezil Zappa and CeCe DeVille and all these people on New Year's Eve. And I'm like wearing like black and some fringe. I've got like a white, like cool hat on with a black bow in it. Like, I don't know. So I'm there and I'm singing Wild Thing with all of them. And then after that, Sam Kinison wants to get a private plane and go to Las Vegas.
Of course
he
he
wants
does.
me to go with them all.
Of
And
course.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm like, oh shit. And Howard Kaufman's with me. And I'm like, Howard, like they want me to go to Vegas with them. And look, I was raised Catholic. So I've got the halo and I got the
yeah.
Right.
I'm like, I got all like, okay, I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And I was excited. And then like the little girl was sort of like, okay, seems terrifying. It's CeCe DeVille, Sam Kinison.
Right.
This could all go really bad. I'm the only girl.
It's gonna be the best night ever or the worst night ever.
Totally. So I tell Howard and I'm like, I don't really know what to do. And he put a wad of like hundreds together and put it in my hand. And he was like, go for it. I was about to, and then I changed my mind. I don't know. My grandmother used to pray for me. What can I say? And I just decided not to go. And then about a year ago, I met a girl that had been dating Sam at the time. And she told me that night she was in Vegas when they got there. She said, you were so lucky you weren't there.
See?
Like somebody flatlined.
Oh,
like
God.
It was, yeah. So,
you gotta trust the little voices.
Wild.
So then,
wild.
So Femme Fatale breaks up. You have all the problems with, I mean, just a terrible sequence of events that happen one right after another or right on top of another. You record a couple solo records, and then, was it 12, 13 years later, you decide to reform Femme Fatale and do all women?
Yeah,
how did that come about?
There's a huge cruise that you guys should go on someday called the Rock and Roll Monsters of Rock Cruise.
Looks amazing.
Yes.
So my life, I'm, doing all sorts of things. I was in the car industry. I owned a flower shop in Bellevue, Washington. I've every career I've had except for working on a yacht. That's the only career I've never had. And I realize that now because I'm working on a yacht show, and I was talking with my supervising producer, and I'm like, why the fuck did we not do this in our 20s? What was wrong with
Right? I think about that all the time.
Where were we? Anyway,
right.
So yeah, I've done every job imaginable. I was a manicurist, everything. So basically what happened is I'm living my life and doing my thing. And yes, I dabbled in country for a while. I put a Christian record out with someone who was very non-Christian. I did all sorts of things.
It's always the way it is.
Right. And then just kind of out of the blue, I got a call from a guy named Larry Morand, who puts on the Monsters of Rock cruise. And he says, we're doing this 80s rock revival thing. We've been doing it for a few years, and we'd love for Femme Fatale to be on the boat. And of course I say, absolutely, let's do it. Yeah. Not realizing that I haven't talked to my band in years and years. And I don't even have a band at this point. And actually the guitar player, Bill D'Angelo, had passed away. He's been passed away for about 7 years now. Mm-hmm. So he was gone. And then I just thought I can replace him, or I can do something that I've always been curious about. Let's put an all-female band together. Let's have it be all chicks. Let's see how that goes. Always loved Vixen. Thought, man, what a great slumber party that's got to be, right? So I thought, let me do that. And so, with the help of my husband, Aaron Gavin, who you guys know,
Yes.
awesome
Yeah.
Amazing
musician and
guy.
artist
Yes.
as well. And so with his help, I was just like, what do you think? He's like, go for it. And so I called a friend of mine, guitar player, Angela Grant, great guitar player. And I said, who are the hottest badass guitar players in LA right now? And of course she was thinking, what about me? But I didn't ask her. She told me Courtney Cox and Nita Strauss. They were up and coming guitar players on Sunset Strip. They were like 21, 22, like babies. So I contacted them. I left a message for Courtney. I got both their numbers, left a message for Courtney, left a message for Nita, told them who I was. I would love for you guys to be a part of this band that I'm putting together to be on the Monsters of Rock cruise. And as the story goes, I left these separate messages. I had no idea that they lived together. So
thank God you asked them both.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Well, at first I was thinking it was just going to be one, honestly. And I was going to see who responded first, who I clicked with best, whatever. But then they both contacted me. And as the story goes, when I met with them privately at a Starbucks on Ventura Boulevard, and they both were there, they told me that they were roommates. And I guess earlier in the week, they were listening to Sirius Satellite Radio and Waiting for the Big One came on. And Courtney told me, oh my God, this is the kind of singer we need. Like, we need somebody like this. And then lo and behold, a few days later, so then Courtney runs into the living room. She's like, you're not going to believe who called me. Like, guess who called me? And she tells her that I called. And then Nita says, well, guess who called me? Guess who called me? So we, it was like they were both just kind of excited and dumbfounded. And I met them and they were so beautiful and such great guitar players and so cool and so young. And I was just like, let's do this. So it was sworn to secrecy. We started rehearsals. Then I needed a bass player. And actually, the co-producer of Ex Wives of Rock suggested her babysitter. And I was like, oh my God, what is she talking about? Babysitter. Like, I was like, you have no idea about rock and roll. Well, turns out the babysitter was Janice Tanaka, who toured with Pink and was in L7.
Incredible.
So badass, amazing bass player. Then I needed a drummer. And then I reached out to a girl named Rachel Ryan, who's from New Mexico. That's really great. She's always been on the scene. She's an amazing, she's worked in studios in LA a long time. And so I was going to use her, but then I wanted to use also Athena, who's Tommy Lee's younger sister. And I had always heard about her. And so I invited her to come down to rehearsal, and she walked in the room and we had almost the identical outfit on. And like fingerless gloves and like boots, like it was just like we had beanies on, and we just kind of looked at each other like, okay, like yeah. And then the band was basically formed. I mean, I basically had two drummers at the time. I used both Rachel and Athena on the first Monsters of Rock cruise, and then Rachel went off and did her own thing. And then, Athena was, a part of Ex Wives of Rock. And so, yeah, it was amazing. Girl power to the max. Six of us.
So how did that lead to the phone call from Vixen?
Well, we've been doing shows since 2013. And during that time, I became a TV producer. And I was still doing gigs on the weekends. And whenever we would get something, look, Femme Fatale, we sold a 250,000 records. We didn't sell 500,000 or 1 million. And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't bullshit myself. Like,
that's
pretty not bad.
Still pretty damn impressive. Yeah. There's a lot of people out there dreaming of selling 250,000 records.
So not a bad go. But at the same time, I'm not delusional. I know that we didn't sell as many records as Vixen. Vixen's platinum selling artist. So we were doing shows as Femme Fatale, and then my guitar players, Nikki, Anita Strauss, and Courtney were also in the Iron Maidens, which is an all-female Iron Maiden band. They're super amazing, note for note. They're amazing. So they were playing a lot and getting popular. And so there were only a certain amount of gigs that we could even do under the moniker of Femme Fatale. And after years and years of doing this and just not really just the finances and me handling all of it. I was ready to just let it all go. We did Hard Rock Hell November of 2019, I think. No, 2018. And after that show, I mean, my husband came with me. We were in England and Wales, and it was great. But then when I came back, I was just sort of like, I just felt done. Like my spirit just knew I was done. And so I remember I called my agent and I said, I thought a lot about this, and I just think I'm done. I just like, there's no magic in it for me anymore. I'm going to focus. I'm just going to casting, producing. That's my jam. And I think I'm done. And so he understood, he respected it. And then the very next day, I get a call. Well, actually, sorry, guys. Vixen singer Janet Gardner, who's been with them since the beginning, had a brain aneurysm in 2018. And they called me in February because she could not fly because she had a metal plate put in her head. So they asked me if I would sit in for this one gig. I was really excited, and I was really scared too because she sings higher than I do. She's the voice of Vixen, and I was nervous. And then I worked on the songs. I was like, hell yeah, I can do this. Okay, I'll do this. So I did the one-off. I expected it to only be a one-off, but I'll tell you, I went to this, it was a casino gig in Choctaw, Oklahoma. It was an amazing hotel. We were treated really well. I was just like, wow, this is really nice. It's sort of like the difference of, you know, DoubleTree versus, you know. So I
Right.
was
Yeah.
like, okay, this is kind of cool. And there was a little bit in me, I was like, I can kind of get used to this. It's kind of cool. But I let it go and just like, it's done. So a year later, the day after I called my agent and said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I got a call from the drummer Roxy, because Roxy and I had put a band together years before called Rocktopus. And so we were kind of doing a little side thing. And then Cher and I were doing something with a band called L.A. Nookie with some kind of heavyweights, the guys from Wasp and a couple of others. Oh, Lisa Leverage, who played with Courtney Love. And so we had this like power, like top 40-ish rock thing, like a cover band, but doing hits of the 80s and 90s. But, Lisa Leverage, that's no joke. I mean, she's
Right.
amazing. So I knew these girls. It was odd. We talked about this. Like, we were not friends in the 80s scene, which is peculiar. And I wish that we would have been, because, I wanted to be friends with Ann Wilson and Lita Ford. And like,
Yeah.
they were like my heroes. I mean,
Yes.
Howard Kaufman managed the Wilson sisters. Howard Kaufman's responsible for putting their boobs up and making them famous in the 80s. So I wanted to be friends with all of these girls. And those friendships didn't happen for me. And so I wish that I could have had that camaraderie. But there was such a competition with the radio, of like getting played on the radio. And if I would walk in and see Lita's poster on the wall, I knew I wasn't going to get the radio station, because she got there first, because they were only playing like one female,
Right.
like every other day or something. So it was kind of this weird thing. Or if I saw Vixen, it wasn't going to happen. So I wish that I would have been friends with them then. But here we are, 2019 or 18. She's calling me and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Just going to lunch on my lunch break." And she's like, "Well, what do you think about singing for Vixen?" I was like, "Dude, I just called Sullivan last night. I'm done. Like, I'm done." She's like, "Done?" It's like, "Done, done?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty much done. I'm like, "Done." And she's like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "No, pretty sure." So we had this conversation, and there was a lot of things going on with my husband and his job, and he was working at the NFL at the time, and going through a lot of stress, and with his job, and there wasn't a good time to talk to him about this offer that I got. And so I just kind of was like, I'm just going to chill, think about it, and I know I need to talk with him about it and see what he says. And we were just so busy, and it just didn't happen. And the girls were like, what is it? What is it? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And then they said, well, we've had a meeting with Janet, and she's definitely leaving the band. Like, she's getting ready to announce. So we need to know if you're doing it. We need to know what your bottom dollar is. like all of these things, like what percentage do you want of merch? Like I had no idea because like my husband's my best friend, number one. And I was like, I have nobody to talk to. So I was just sort of like in this frozen, like, I don't really know what to do. I want to do it, but I don't want it to cause issues or problems. And I can't say yes without talking to him. So then finally one night after a dinner with his dad, I remember like we got back to our place and I just told him, I was like, I've gotten this call from Roxy and she wants me to be the singer of Vixen. So we talked it through and we agreed to it. And he was like, I'm like, I'm going to be 61 and like this opportunity is crazy and weird. And here we are a million years later, but like, I don't know, like, why not?
Right.
Like, why not? So we decided like, let's go for it. Let's kind of see what happens. And so, here we go. And, I let the girls know they were super excited. People had been writing in on Facebook, like, we hope you choose Lorraine Lewis. Like, it was kind of like this thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like it happened and then it was real. And it was like, oh shit, what have I done? But then it was like, interviews and everything. And it was like a really cool thing. And I basically flew out to our first show. We had no rehearsals. I would just sit in bed with my headphones on. These guys listen to their songs over and over and over again. And just to make sure I had everything, this is my little doggy. And so I just learned the songs as best as I could. Aaron and I flew out to the first show that was in Clearwater, Florida at a motorcycle festival. I got off the plane, got picked up by a driver, got taken to the stage. All of a sudden we're doing a sound check. And then 4 hours later, we're hitting the stage and rocking the house and boom. And there it started.
On Lorraine, you can follow her on Twitter, where she is at Lorraine Kicks. You can follow her on Instagram, where she is at Lorraine Rocks. And for more information on Vixen, you can check out their website, vixenofficial.com.
You can follow us on all the various socials. You can check out our website at rockandrollgradschool.com for more grad school content. And please leave us a review on iTunes. We're tired of asking our family members to do so.
Today's show was produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. Our graphic designer is Samantha Mastonen. This one's for Philippe. Thank you, good night, and may all your favorite bands stay together.